It depends on how we think about human nature. Is it simply, do we choose our behavior? Is our behavior largely a product of of how our brains work along with the environment we're in? Is it a product of our ability to control impulses? Those are things we're still really sorting through, and we don't really know. And there's a great deal of discussion among scientists and philosophers and law professors about whether we are more than our brains or we're simply brain function. If we are simply brain function, it means we don't have a lot of free will, right? Our brains basically decide what we're going to do, and we don't have what we would consider personal choice. On the other hand, if we do have free will, and we are somewhat limited by our brains and the materiality of our brains, then we have to decide who could be helped to change, right? Can we change? And even if we are simply materialist brains, right? We are nothing more than our brains. Can we change brains, right? If we're thinking about it from that perspective. And I don't think anybody knows the answer to these things. One thing I think is that there are a large group of people who can have better lives, who can have healthier lives, who can have more law-abiding lives, who can have meaningful lives and not just stuck in prison the rest of their life. There might be a small group of people who we currently don't know how to change. And, you know, in a sense, I think people have to want to be different. If they have no desire to be different, then I don't see that there's much hope for them to change at all. So there may be a group of people who can't be helped. I think we need to determine whether people are generally rehabilitatable. So by that I mean some people will benefit from rehabilitative programs. Other people probably will not benefit from rehabilitation programs, or at least we don't know how to structure a rehabilitation program that works for everyone. If we're talking about juveniles specifically, I think we should try very hard to be rehabilitating juveniles rather than simply locking them up. In any event, putting a juvenile in prison is certainly not going to help brain development. If in your teen years your brain is what you think about, putting a child in an environment or an adolescent environment where there's violence, where there's danger, where there's just an entirely negative environment in a prison system, for example, I think we're not going to help them recover at all. I am a believer that most people can respond to some rehabilitation. I think we have not given that enough attention in the last few decades in prison. That isn't really a stated goal anymore of prison. It's simply to separate people from society and to punish them. So I think if as a society we decide that we should be trying to rehabilitate as many people as we could, I'm all for that.